none of that was captured.
You still have the ability to,
And then I guess I need,
acronyms? Yeah.
Well, like, as I mentioned, unfortunately, my office is so small, I'm the only 2210. I'm the only
Oh.
IT person in my office.
Okay.
I don't work for the CIO anymore, I left that office a while back and moved for other good reasons, they managed it horrible. But, so now I'm not in
So
my
you're
office.
their own
I'm the only
personal direct
2210,
support.
that's it.
Oh,
And so,
you can't take a vacation.
no, so like everything from CNAs to procurements, and then, so I'm supposed to be the business relationship manager between the customer and the CIO.
Yeah.
So that's another aspect of it, and, you know, I tell my boss, hey, there's no more room on my evaluation. I only have I have 4 critical elements. Do you wanna just add more? Like this was supposed to be, I talked to people when the CNA stuff came down the pike, I talked to people and I said, hey, how are you guys doing it upstairs? So this person handles all of our CNAs, that's all they do. Okay, and I'm like, okay, great, that's their only job. That's their only, they were hired to do that at the grade that they were hired to do it. And you wanna give that to me as a critical element?
In addition to.
In addition to, I'm like, we can only have 4, where are you gonna put it, special projects?
Oh, the sub,
Where you gonna put it, special
the
projects?
subcategory.
Didn't we get rid of other duties as assigned, didn't that go to the wayside many years ago? So, like, people are hired to do this as their full-time job, and you just wanna give it to me as an add-on.
How many people do you support?
We have 170 something,
You support that indirectly?
yes,
That's two.
yes.
Mm-hmm.
We have 5 people in our office, I think only I have 2210. Now, again, I don't handle trouble call related. CIO's office is responsible for that,
Yeah.
but we handle, acquisitions, IT goods and services, that's us. Telecom, I have 180 something Blackberries, Air cards, and other devices that I'm
Local property officer, that's all.
I'm so responsible for that, and I'm
Right.
the property accountability officer.
Mm.
I have 600 pieces of equipment and 3 property custodians. There's supposed to be like a property custodian for every 60 pieces.
Yeah, I don't know about the,
Yeah, that's our.
we just lost 2 of our
Yeah.
3 property officers.
Yeah, I have 3 property custodians and 600 pieces of equipment.
welcome to do more with less.
Yeah.
Yeah, but the public things, we don't do much of it.
Yeah.
Yes, we're underworked and overpaid.
Right. Where
I
did
hear
the
that one more
overpaid
time.
part come from?
Yeah.
Because they have this
When they were
vision that
contractors making tons of money?
if I'm a government worker, I'm making this huge amount of money, but if I was doing the same thing in the civilian world, I'd be making maybe half. Well, I don't know where you're getting your numbers from, but you're wrong. But you can argue that you're blue in the face, but they've got a situation where, I don't know if it's a pilot, a doctor, or whatever, that they can point that out, and they
Yeah.
then take that one piece of information and say, that's government-wide. Well, no, it's not. But they put that perception out there, and public buys into it
And
and
they
line
put-
and
they
sinker.
put the freeze on the pay for what, 3 years now, 2.5, 3 years?
This is the second year possibly.
And in commerce, like probably many agencies have decided to make a reduction as far as.
Oh, big you.
As far as, everyone's making reductions.
We started with contractor,
You know,
defense aren't going
You got rid of contractors, you got rid of, staff that you didn't, and then here come the promotions and everything like that, they got halted or stopped, any kind of bonuses
They're
or
talking
stopped.
about interviewing.
And now they're talking about furloughs.
Yes,
Now they're talking about furloughs.
and they're talking about changing retirement from high 3 to high 5.
Yeah, they are.
And
But
when
what
the
difference
furloughs
is it
come,
gonna
they're
make
also
if they
talking,
keep us frozen? It doesn't make a difference.
well, when things unfreeze, because now you're stuck
Are they gonna?
with because one of the things that will happen if they furlough is forced retirement. They'll start giving people, I'll pay you to leave.
Right.
You got the
Yeah.
age, you got the
And a lot of
time.
people will jump, a lot of people will take that.
And it
Not
probably should.
anymore though. They're not taking it anymore.
Well,
They
economists.
used to take that 25 and go.
Right.
Well, part of it is that now they gotta look at, well, can I make it on my annuity,
Well, the
on my
deal
retirement?
is that now most of the CSRS people gone.
Yeah.
Or they're going. Now it's hitting the first people.
Yeah.
The first people.
First people don't want to go.
They aren't taking the 25
Yeah.
because their retirement is so much less.
Yeah.
Yeah. We've got several at our place that would qualify, but they're like I said, I I think I can be okay on my retirement, but I'm gonna take the full paycheck for as long as I can
Right.
to head off any.
Because you have to figure 25,000, once you pay taxes on it,
Yeah.
what do you
Actually-
see, 15?
This Friday, the 6th, I hit 12 years on the 6th.
Right.
So it's my anniversary.
12-year anniversary?
Yeah.
Like anniversary?
As a.
Could be in effect.
How old are you?
Sorry.
I was 42.
Okay.
I had to think about that.
So we're gonna-
Good
I have some time in service though. I brought in 4 years, military.
Yeah, does that count?
Yeah,
You
well,
12
I
years?
paid into it.
Yeah, I buy mine
Yeah.
like 2 years.
So I bought in 4 years, so I have.
So that gives you 12 years?
Yeah, it gives me 12. My computation date is, 99. And,
So you're gonna work till you're about 65?
Well,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm excited considering that, most of my other friends, with the exception of 1 or 2, they're kind of still, a lot of us got out of the Marine Corps, all together, and, they're still kind of just drifting.
Yeah.
So it's me and maybe a handful of guys are actually, doing something.
Are you retired military?
No, I got out after 4 years.
It's all done now, help from there.
Did you go reserve?
Nope. I did inactive reserves for 4 years, so that was a total of 8, but that really, that doesn't count towards any time. Yeah.
I did for the Air Force and Air National Guard and Army.
So you stayed in reserves?
Over 20.
Great. That's
I'm
great.
on what they call individual retirement, so waiting for 60. But they're gonna change the benefits.
Yes,
They're changing it, I don't know.
And dangle that carrot and then just move it further away.
Yeah.
Alright, you guys ready to talk about some risk
Nope.
management?
We'll plan for retirement and risk management.
This is an amazing subject in itself. The problem with it is that every curriculum that I've seen, they always list risk management as like the shortest chapter, or it's the last chapter in the book, curriculum, and it's undervalued. But realistically, it's the most important. So it doesn't do it justice when they say, this is really, really important, and then that's it. It's like, that's all they say. It's like, how am I supposed to do this? There is no how-to guide or best practices. You just assume people know how to do this. But I find that people just don't know how to do this. And what I always recommend is apply this stuff to your life. Go through, what's the likelihood of you not having a car? How much impact does that have? What are your contingencies? And apply this stuff to your real life. Because with them, when you see the news, and people are going, I don't have electricity, the power's out in my neighborhood because of the storm, and I'm just like, why don't you have a generator? What year are we in?
Well, I still don't
Are you
have
still
that
playing
generator.
along, people?
I still don't have that generator yet, but.
Grab a generator.
I got it.
Prices have come down amazingly on it.
Yeah, I know.
But you don't even have to go generator, just go water. Can you distill water in your house without, a public water supply?
One of the reasons I'm glad I'm on well and septic, I don't have to worry about it.
So there you go.
Well,
Yeah,
you
electric
gotta
was
worry
out.
about power, though.
That's why I got
The
generator.
manual
Yeah.
pump.
Oh, okay, yeah.
And they do make, I'm not gonna pay the money for them, but they do make where we can actually put in a
Yeah.
well pump.
Man, okay, that is nice.
Also, this is a framework section, so again, it's an ice cube tray. So you can, there's no how-to guide here. It's very, very vague in the sense that it is a framework, but it's the foundational stuff. So, let's see, National Strategy for Cyberspace Operations, Joint Chiefs Staff. Through the process of risk management, leaders must consider risk to U.S. interests. I'm not even so sure what that means anymore. But U.S. interests from adversaries using cyberspace to their advantage, and from our own efforts to employ the global nature of cyberspace to achieve objectives in military intelligence, etc. In the cyberspace is in my opinion, the key piece of this, because that's where the war happens now. The wars don't happen in terms of big ships and planes and missiles and nuclear bombs, or at least they haven't happened in that way. Also, wars really are meant to be won in the sense that they were like the Civil War. You one side basically beats the other, and the other side just goes away silently. Nowadays, we go to war and we have to rebuild the country and all that other stuff, and I guess the war field or the battlefield has changed. It's a different capacity. So we're going to look at how this evolved, what that means in terms of national standards, all the different pieces of it, the different tiers, the risk management framework steps. That's very, very important because you understand the life cycle, the fundamentals of risk management, including SDLC. That's another life cycle model. It's very, very important. Inter or intra-organization wide risk management, security control allocation. Where do you allocate controls? What's the hottest button at the time? And of course, the who factor, the roles and responsibility. So that's what we're going to spend in most of our time today. All right, so this is going to be 837 Rev 1. And it will be helpful to have that up. I want you guys to pull up revision in this 837 Rev 1. And you'd always say that in the file name, 837 Rev 1 final PDF, and you should pull a copy from the NIST, basically. So as I highlight things in the documents, it's helpful to make page references. All right, so there's a life cycle going to be baked into this. There's risk baked into this, and for the purpose of certification and accreditation as well. Many people are using this partnership with the DoD. We got the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, the Committee on National Security Systems, et cetera. Guidance developed by the Joint Task Force Transformation Initiative, some initiative a little while back. And some of the revised process emphasis, if you look at some of the notes there. Building information security capabilities into federal information systems. That just means, hey, you got a federal system, you're building security capability into it. I'm not sure what state of the art means, because that's always a relative term, but in terms of management, operational, and technical, those are the types of the security controls. I cross-reference that with my CISSP model of PALTO. It's another model you can use. Instead of administrative, it's just management. But in many cases, it means the same thing. Operational, technical, or even physical controls. And you can expect this type of stuff to have multiple revisions over time because it is life cycle. And so even in life cycle in itself, you're going to have multiple revisions. So in this case, we have enhancements to the monitoring processes and senior, I don't want to say senior, different factors that affect leadership is probably a better way of saying that. Because it's basically the decision points that senior leaders need to make to understand and accept risk. Now that assumes that they actually know what that means and can calculate it and can make a decision based on a risk. But I don't know how many times I've put a report on somebody's desk and said, here's a report, come back a week later and it's exactly where I left it. And like, did you look at that? Yeah, that was great, Trick. And like it still has the dust on it. Did you really, really look at this? Do you really understand it? Yeah, we're going to go ahead with that. But you didn't read it. How do you know? Do you really understand the risk? And when they don't have to be held accountable, there's no incentive for me to actually read that because I'm getting paid less to do more. So there's a flaw in the overall way that things actually get done. I don't have to accept the risk. I'm not going to be held accountable or responsible. So sure, I accept the risk, right? Why not? So you gotta watch out for that piece of it. There's also the international standards, and these are worth knowing. You have the ISO or the IEC standards, everything from the 31,000 series to the 27,000 series. So what is the 27,000 series with ISO 27,000? Anybody know? Where's it come from? What's it do? Why is it important? Who does it affect? I just pulled up the Wikipedia page. You heard of it? ISO?
Yeah.
That's
The
27,000.
International Standards Organization. So standard being basically a minimum. Everybody gets get everybody to a minimum level. The 27,000 series number. So it's a family of controls. And if you pull up the Wikipedia and you actually, this is the one that I wanted. Excuse me. It's a series providing best practice recommendations or guidelines on information security management risks and controls. You'll also see references to the ISO 9000, and you should have seen those because people are very, very proud of getting to the ISO 9000 series. They'll put signs on the side of their building, you'll see advertisements, they'll make it part of their brand, if you will. So what companies try to do is they try to brand themselves as, hey, I'm ISO 9000 certified, which basically means that that business regularly produces a consistent product. And they're certified to regularly produce consistent products. So they use that as a marketing advantage to say, hey, you can go with, John Jones Company, or you can go with us, but we're certified you're going to get a consistent product from us. And then you have the Environmental Protection Series, which is the 14,000 series. This right here pretty much says it all in terms of the 50,000 foot view of each of the standards. So 27,000, and you should know these, not necessarily write them down, but make a reference to know these, at least by the major bucket. Because you may be in the office and somebody say, 27,005, and you should know that that's risk management. They're referring to risk, basically. So whether they throw the numbers out there or not, you can distinguish between them by 27,005 is risk management, 4 is security management and measurement, which is a very nerdy conversation on metrics, which is fine. 27,003, security management systems implementation guidance. 27,000 is 2. The code of practice for information security management. 27,001 is the requirements. You'll often see 27,000 and 27,001 commonly. Sometimes, depending on who you talk to, you'll see like 4, 5, or 6. 27,006, that's important because that's certification. Right? And I mean, there's, like I said, there's several, so some of these are, depending on what you do, the what's in it, I always try to address the what's in it for me factor. And so right now, what's in it for you is to just know the major buckets and start distinguishing between them. Later on in your career, you may be interested in getting into a specific ISO standard and become a subject matter expert in that area. But this is international standards, and that helps, but not necessarily apples to apples if you're going to have a United States government conversation. Because again, our government has our own way of doing things throughout the world. This is just the international standard, if you will. And that's kind of, that's kind of helpful in terms of history too. You can look at our government and you can see the different standard models. So there was the British standard, 7799 standard. Then you had your Canadian, I want to say CANSEC, but I think that's wrong. Well, let me start at the beginning. Let's see, we used, our government used, it's coming into me. All right, so the common criteria, you guys ever heard of the common criteria? Common criteria was kind of, well, let me back up. Have you heard of the Rainbow Series? All right, a little bit more CISSP oriented, but I'll show you Rainbow Series. The way that the Rainbow Series was created, it was basically a per book series. So each book had its own color, and when you put it on the shelf, it clearly looked like a rainbow, so it was nicknamed the Rainbow Series. The Orange Book specifically basically was the Trusted Computer Systems Evaluation Criteria. So that's what our system is truly based off at its core foundation. So if you go back to the earlier days, and I'm talking like in the 70s, even probably before that, because I don't know the year that it came out, but in the 70s and 80s, basically everything had an Orange Book feeling to it. It's just the way that we did that. But it was very, very rigid. Basically, the Trusted Computer Systems Evaluation Criteria only addressed confidentiality. That's where we get our clearances and our classifications. So you can see the scope of that only applies to basically keeping things confidential. Well, there's all of these other factors that that we evaluate now, like access control. Access control, in itself is its own subject. So the Rainbow Series became too rigid. So in America, we used TCSAC. In Europe, they used something called ITSAC, or the International Trusted Evaluation Criteria. And then there was a Canadian one as well, which I want to say CANSAC, maybe there's a reference to it here. I just can't think of it off the top of my head. And so what they decided to do is kind of take some of the best pieces of all of this and basically combine it. Say, look at all the series, right? And then the color of the book. So they wanted to combine it into the common criteria, and then even that didn't address other things. So what they decided to do is that they kept saying to themselves, hey, we're always redoing this. Why don't we just come up with basically a risk management framework, and we'll have the ability to evaluate the systems no matter what changes, and we'll just address the changes as they come. So that's kind of how we got to today. And then even today, meaning today, in terms of the CAP certification. But yeah, all these were different books. They were not exciting to read. If I do file type :PDF, and if I ask Google for the PDF, just give me the PDF of this, and if you pull it up, what do you notice about this document?
Typed.
Exactly. 83 is a typed document. So that'll give you the early version of this if you really wanted to read it. Not exciting to read whatsoever, but here's where we look at our criteria in terms of the evaluation criteria, A, B, C, and D in the different class systems. So basically, mandatory access control is what addresses DoD systems, and because everything is labeled in terms of secret or top secret or SCI or whatever the label is, and even in terms of basically the product in itself. So did the product have minimal protection or very, very high protection? And there's only a few systems in the world that actually meets this criteria of verified protection. And I'd say most of your commercial products are C and B oriented, and I'm sure there's millions more that are, just applications that have been written that have never even been tested, and this would be minimal. So going back to this material, the ISO, these are international standards. 31,000 is risk management oriented. 27,000, these are your requirements. You should know them as requirements. And then 27,005 would be risk management. All right. There's different ways for these types of models. All right, this one does an assess, monitor, and respond, and you frame that from the beginning. But another common one is plan, do, check, act. Have you ever heard of that? PDC,
sorry?
plan, do,
Cycle.
check, plan, do, check, act.
The Deming cycle,
Yeah, what is it?
the Deming cycle, right?
Deming? It may be, I don't know off the top of my head. But plan, do, check, act is another life cycle way of thinking. In other words, the planning is the initiation, then you basically implement it, you do it, you check it, you verify it, and then, rinse and repeat from there at that point out. Here we
do check, act.
PDCA, plan, do, check, act. You will see that reference multiple times. So I kind of have an advantage here because I've seen multiple certifications and multiple frameworks and multiple standards and multiple project management methodologies, if you will. And so you get exposed to a variety of them. So here, from the NIST point of view, you have the assess, monitor, and respond, and then rinse and repeat over and over and over again. But it's also very similar to plan, do, check, act, or any sort of life cycle in itself. This is also a very important document. Now, and the reason being is because most of us deal with tier 3 / tier 2 and tier 3. Especially if you're very, very technically oriented, or if you're talking with someone who's very technically oriented, probably you're having a tier 3 conversation in terms of risk, as opposed to tier 1, which is at the business, mission, function, or organizational level. And also strategic risk at the top and tactical risk. Tactical in this case meaning day-to-day, strategic meaning long-term and visionary. The reason why this is important is because you can use a model like this to eliminate wrong answers on your practice test. When they start talking about risk, what level are you acting at? Right? If you have a risk question and it's very, very technical, it's probably at the tactical level. So we're looking at tactical risks. Right? So like just getting to work today. What were the risks of not getting here? Traffic, snow,
Bless you.
right? Traffic, snow, weather, personal health, bless you. Those are all tactical issues. As opposed to more strategic or visionary, how do you get to work? From a strategic point of view. Well, do you buy a house right across the street from where you work? That would be more strategic and visionary. It's still the same conversation, how do you get to work? But one point of view would be, day to day. The other one would be strategic and long term. So the point of reference can change, which also means that your answers on your practice tests can change as well. Right? So it's important to frame the question appropriately. So no book will tell you, a few other instructors will tell you, but I'm here to tell you that when you see something like this, it's there so that you can frame the point of view of the question. Also, when you're in the workplace and somebody comes up to you and they say, oh, we had a server go down, blah, 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 blah. Well, what level was that? Yeah, tactical or IT system oriented, as opposed to we were spending so much money on research and development of X, Y, and Z, and we no longer have funding for that problem, for that research and development. Well, that's still a risk, the risk of losing your funding, but that's going to be up at the organizational level. Why is the organization funding this project for research and development, right? So these types of diagrams, I think, are very, very important. And you should be able to push and pull information through this, right? I mean, how do you make strategic risk decisions? Where are you going to get the information from that from?
Well, you need to know what's happening now.
Right, you're going to have to probe into the tactical areas to better understand either your requirements or whatever it is. So you can move laterally through that, or horizontally, vertically, you can move throughout this to gather the information. So something like this helps you frame the point of view. Would you like some easy points in your practice exam?
Yes.
You have to understand the different categories of risk management and where you're working at. But because it's life cycle, you should be able to at least narrow this down into the areas, right? You've got the beginning part where you're categorizing, or you know, hey, let's group everything into management, operational, and technical. Let's start there. And then you come up with 3 piles. And then you can start, out of the management category, you can start selecting different controls, policies, standards, procedures, guidelines, things like that. Or technical, you know, maybe something like access control, etc. And then we go into implementation, or let's put it in production, and you'll have testing and validation environments where before you put something in production, you gotta test it, make sure the thing doesn't blow up. That would be implementation. Once it gets into a production environment, okay, is that the end of life? Well, let me back up. First of all, people want to skip categorization and the selection of controls. They want, most people I find, take this part very, very lightly, and this doesn't get done properly, and all of a sudden they want to implement it, right? So how do we implement stuff? What do we have to do if we want to get something in a production environment? We have to go through the change control board. So now all of a sudden they're sitting in front of this change control board and they want documentation. Agree or disagree? So where does that documentation come from?